You're listening to TCR Radio.
So hello, this is Ian Hobbs from the Devon Book Club, and I'm here at the Tiverton Literary Festival interviewing wonderful authors that have joined us today. And I'm going to start with Jill Treseder. Jill, hello.
Hello.
And I think you're from Cornwall, but writing local books as well.
Yes, my name comes from Cornwall, but actually I come from South Devon.
So you're not a foreigner then?
No, not a foreigner.
So could you just tell us a little bit about the range of books that you've written and the sort of things that you like to write about?
I started off with a self-development book for women, but I always wanted to write fiction. And when I discovered A Family Secret, that was what triggered me, and I turned that into fiction. The second book, I wanted to get as far away from family as possible, so I took 2 postcards and got them to speak to each other, and that was going to be a 20-minute writing exercise, but it turned into a novel 2 years later. And the third one is a quest, a coming-of-age novel. So
quite a range then. And how long have you been writing?
Seriously, since about 2002. So what's that, 15 years? Oh, my goodness, it's 15 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but less seriously since I was about 7 years old. And then professionally, non-fiction, reports and stuff like that. But which led to a PhD, which led to the personal development book. So it's all linked.
Well, it's a fantastic range and all sounds really interesting. And what does being at a festival like this mean for you?
What does it mean for me? I love the idea of getting together with other writers and also meet potential readers. And that, it's a very lively atmosphere here. So that's what I'm enjoying, that meeting of people, because writing can be a lonely thing.
Well, indeed. Well, I hope you have a fantastic festival anyway, and thank you for talking to us.
Thanks very much, Ian. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on from Jill, I'm now talking to L.E Willetts. L.E, or Lucy, how do you prefer to be known?
Well, Lucy, obviously my name, but L.E Willetts being my writing name. I don't mind, you can call me what you like.
Well, that sounds fun. So here we are at Tiverton, and this is your debut novel, I think?
It is indeed, yes. It was published at the end of April last year. It was actually the product of a NaNoWriMo attempt in 2014. My first success. I've entered Nano year in, year out and never managed to achieve the word count. Finally, I achieved it. It was pretty much nonsense, but luckily 2 years later, after a lot of hard work, a lot of editing, Crosskiller was born. And yeah, quite pleased with the end product.
So for people who don't know, what is Nano?
Sorry, NaNoWriMo, it's National Novel Writing Month. It takes place every November. The basic idea is you write a novel in a month, which we all know isn't really possible, but you just write and write, you don't edit, just get the words down, and hopefully at the end of it you've got something to work with to end up with a novel.
That's fantastic. And I think when I heard you talk at Dartmouth recently, you were saying that was, in a way, an inspiration for you to get the book written. So could you tell us a little bit about what Crosskiller's about?
Yeah, Crosskiller focuses on a couple whose marriage has gone stale over the years, Eileen and Malcolm Muldoon. Eileen is convinced her husband's capable of murder. Malcolm's convinced that Eileen is trying to kill him. So he does what any other self-respecting man would do and decides he must kill her first. Unfortunately, he's not very good at it. Or fortunately for Eileen, I suppose. It depends how you look at it. In the process of Malcolm trying to kill his wife, he manages to put them both at the scene of a double murder, and they become the prime suspects in a proper murder, basically. So yeah, all a bit of fun, and I probably shouldn't say much more, otherwise there'll be nothing to read.
You'll give the game away. Well, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like a really good read, so thank you for talking to us, and good luck with the festival. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so moving on around the table, lots and lots of authors to talk to here, and I'm now with Casey O'Connor, who's another debut writer. Casey, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here at the festival. Can you start by telling us a little bit about the book, what it's called and what it's about?
It's a fictional diary set in Dublin about the trials and tribulations of a woman aspiring to be a mother.
Okay, and this is what kind of book? Is it a comedy? Is it a serious book?
It's a comedy stroke. It's bittersweet, really. It's been described as Bridget Jonesy.
Oh, right, okay. So it's a serious subject though as well, isn't it? Because this is about fertility and adoption and fostering and children in care, all sorts of a mix of all sorts of things in here.
Yeah, it touches on to fertility, fostering, adoption, and you know, just these sort of feelings of how a mother copes with those kind of situations.
And as a debut writer, because this is your first novel, I mean, what was it that moved you to start writing?
Well, a friend of mine in Ireland had been through infertility and then gone on to fostering and adoption, and I witnessed it, and I felt what she was going through, and we both decided it would be quite interesting to write about it in a fictional kind of way.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And I wonder, I mean, for you as a debut author coming here to a festival like this, what's that like?
Quite scary.
You're afraid of meeting the punters, are you?
Yes, yeah.
But I imagine mixing with lots of other writers and meeting the public is actually a really exciting thing for you.
Yeah, writing is a huge journey. Yeah, it's a huge thing to go through, but very, very, very rewarding.
Well, I've read the book, and for those that haven't seen it, there's an interview of you on our Devon Book Club Facebook page, and that went really well. So that was exciting. I enjoyed reading the book myself. So good luck with the book, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.
Yeah, and the sequel's coming soon.
Just quickly tell us about the sequel then.
The sequel is following on in the same style as Aspiring Mother, but yeah, it's coming soon.
Well, when you say soon, is that this year, next year?
Hopefully beginning of next year.
Okay, fabulous. Well, good luck with that, and thanks again for talking to us. Okay, well, that was great talking to Casey. I'm now moving on to one half of J Colewood, but this is Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you better start by explaining who you and your other half are.
Okay, so I'm Jacqueline. I'm one half of the J Colewood writing partnership. My co-author is Mark Colnut, who he's a Devon born and bred. And both of us, currently live in Spain. So we decided to co-author the book, and because I was Jacqueline Wood, we made up the name Colewood, so J Colewood.
Fabulous. And so, can you tell us about the title of the book and a little bit about what it's about?
The book is The Last Treasure of Ancient England, and it's the first in the Chester Bentley mystery series. It's based starts in 1066, where something disappears from the body of King Harold as he lies on the battlefield. Only one person knows the whereabouts of this object, and before he dies, he sets a trail of clues for future generations to follow. So we fast forward to the 1980s at Buckland House School, and our protagonist Chester Bentley discovers the very first clue. So he and his friends set off an adventure throughout Devon, and it includes Exeter and various locations, looking for the treasure, which they may or may not find.
Okay, so the book is The Last Treasure of Ancient England, and you say this is the first in a series, so how many more books are going to be coming?
There should be 4 or 5. The second one will be, I can't really say what it's about, but I can say it will be based at Blundell's School. The protagonist will go to Blundell's School. Okay,
and so how did the two of you come to decide that was the series you wanted to write? What was the inspiration for that?
Well, my co-author attended the boarding school at Buckland House in the 1980s, and he discovered something about the school, which sort of fired up his imagination. And together with things that he'd learnt about the Norman invasion from his history teacher, he came up with an idea for a story. He didn't write the story right away. He's been mulling over it for years and years. And then when his daughter was born a couple of years ago, he had lots of sleepless nights, and he lay there thinking about the story. And he came up with a whole series of ideas, so like book 2 and book 3. He then approached me and asked if I would like to co-author the book, and I jumped at the chance because when he told me what the story was about, it was very exciting.
So how does co-authoring work? I mean, because the two of you must have somewhat different styles, and how does that blend?
The book is set in 3 time periods. So in the first book we've got the Norman invasion, and we've got the 1930s storyline, which is set at the manor house of Buckland House, and the 1980s children's the school storyline. So we planned the story together, and then we divided up the writing. So he has an MA in history. He's taken charge of the Norman storyline and also the school storyline based on his experience. And I've done the 1930s, and then obviously we edited it all together.
Well, fabulous. It all sounds really exciting. And this is your first book, I think, isn't it, as a writing partnership? So it must be really exciting for you to be at a venue like this.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This is actually my first event, and I have to say that people have been very welcoming. There's a wonderful atmosphere here at the library today, and I'm really enjoying myself. It's wonderful. A chance to meet other authors and speak to people that are interested in the book, the readers. Yeah.
That's great. And Tiverton's clearly a town that loves books and loves writers, and we're very fortunate in Devon to have so many excellent ones. So lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the day.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. OK, so moving on now to Jill Robinson. Jill, first time we've met. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And I'm looking at a range of books in front of me, a range of titles. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and what's, what you've published so far?
Yes, I started off with a series of 4 books. They're comedy novels featuring a hapless middle-aged heroine and all the escapades that she gets into, which could happen to us all. You know, we all have problems with kids and dogs and jobs and neighbours and the recycling, and so it goes. And so they've been out for a while, and I give talks to WIs and U3As and Probus groups. People come up to me at the end and say that they think the same things happen to them, so it sparks their memories as well, and then they perhaps might go home and write about it or something. But last year I was inspired to write a memoir of 1960s Tiverton, the rainy season, because the world is changing so fast. I thought that the conditions I describe would soon no longer be within living memory. So I wrote about the 60s, which weren't very swigging in Tiverton. I was there, and I can remember it. I remember it rather well. So it's a story of, it's a family story, but there's a lot of social history in it as well. Unfortunately, the family has an abusive, alcoholic father heading the family, and things were so different then in that the police would not attend incidents of domestic violence. Women and girls were discriminated against in quite a severe way. My mother couldn't even rent a television set without a male guarantor. This was after she'd escaped from the abusive father, even though she had a job. She wasn't able to do that. I was the only girl. There were 3 brothers, and I had to stay in and do housework while the boys went out to play, which I wasn't very thrilled about. And the Saturday girl wages in W.H. Smith's were 2 shillings and 2pence an hour for 15-year-old girls, and 2 shillings and 5pence for 15-year-old boys. So I'm glad to say that while the world is facing other and different problems, those problems have been rectified, I think, to a certain extent.
We've certainly moved quite a long way, haven't we, I think? So there's a mixture in your work between memoir and some light-hearted, socially based books, I suppose, is what you're saying.
Yes, I think all my books are rooted in reality, in that people feel it could have happened to them, even if it hasn't happened to them. And, of course, the memoir is... what I remember did happen. I don't do fantasy. I admire people with the imagination to do it, and I don't do horror, and I don't do crime. As I say, my books, they start off in real life, but perhaps they go a bit further sometimes.
Yeah, well, and will people from Tiverton recognise themselves in these books then?
I think that most of them will have passed away by now. I rather hope most of them will have passed. No, until the death of my 90-year-old history teacher, she was the last living link. Some of the names have been changed. Well, most of the names have been changed if it's going to upset anybody. I don't think it will upset anybody. I don't think that the manager of W.H. Smith will mind me reminiscing about the differential in the wages, and as I say, he's probably no longer with us. I think people will find a lot to remember if they were there at the time, and younger people will find it interesting, and will exclaim over how conditions have changed. Wow.
Okay, well, they sound very interesting books. Thank you. You were interviewed, I think, for the local newspaper recently as well.
Yes, I was, under the headline "Author Returning to Town for Literary Festival." I should say that I've written for The Guardian as well, The Guardian Online. So I did point out that I had more than one string to my bow.
Okay, wonderful. And most of your books are known under the title of the Berrington Brow series?
There's 4 titles in the Berrington Browse series. If you put Berrington Brow into a search engine, it'll all come up anyway. And then the memoir is called The Rainy Season.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the festival. Thank you, Jill. Okay, and so now I'm meeting with Jeannie Wycherley. And Jeannie, you've got a debut novel also published recently called Crone. Can you tell us a little bit about that first?
Okay, well, Crone came about when I was commuting from Sidmouth to Ottery St Mary, and I had to pull in to a lay-by to let a truck pass me on the lane, and as I did so I kind of glanced across to the foliage on the left of me and imagined a woman staring back at me, and that's how Crone came about. So it's the story of a woman who loses her son in a car accident. She thinks it's a tragic accident, but when she finds out that he was actually killed, then she's hell set for revenge. And it's the crone who's at fault. Basically, Crone is a woman who's stalking the people of Abbots Cromley, and she's a nasty piece of work, devious, a bit of a shapeshifter, and she basically sucks the life out of people and takes great delight in doing so. So Abbots Cromley is Ottery St Mary, and you can recognise Tallerton and Wiggerton and Fennerton and Sidmouth, but they're called something else.
So this is what, a thriller, fantasy? How would you describe this? Because Crone, I mean, it doesn't sound like, when you say sucking the blood out of people, that kind of gives us a bit of a clue, doesn't it?
Of course it does, yeah. Well, I'm a horror writer, and I've had about a dozen short stories published in various horror journals, but I think Crone is more dark fantasy than horror. It's not too bloody, it's not too gory. And in fact, in the final edits, I cut out most of the worst sort of stuff, just because I didn't think it kind of helped the story along very much. So you're left to your imagination as to what the Crone actually does.
Well, I like those kind of books where you, for a reader to be able to sort of invent some of the book themselves is actually a wonderful thing, isn't it? So when was Crone published?
3rd of May.
Oh, so it's very, very recent. And how's it going?
It's done really, really well. It went up to number 7 in its category on Amazon, but it's crashed out of there now. But I've done quite well with Kindle Unlimited, which is where you can access it for free, so it's like a library. And the feedback I've had has been really, really positive. And also I shared it on Ottery Matters Facebook page, so some of the locals there have read it and they've really enjoyed it too, and they recognise the area.
Well, that's fantastic. And have you got another book in the making?
I have. I've got an anthology coming out, hopefully towards the end of next month, called Deadly Encounters, and that's all of the short stories I've published up until now. And I'm writing a tribute to my dog, who passed away last year, and that's coming out at the end of next year, and that's supposed to be a more supportive book to help people with pet bereavement, which is something that is underestimated, I think, at times. And my next novel, which is tentatively called The Jumpers, should be due out by the end of the year.
Okay, well, fabulous. That sounds fun. And you mentioned short stories. I mean, you've also been published in an anthology of short stories, a book called Off Track.
Yes, this is with a group of online writers. We call ourselves Urban Writers, or the Writers' Playground. And we've all been writing and sharing our stuff for a number of years now. And last year, for the first time, we decided we would produce an anthology, and everybody wrote a story for the anthology. So I've got one in here, and Julie Archer, who's with me, has got one in there. And the money all goes to the Ministry of Stories, so it's for a good cause.
Well, wonderful. That's fantastic. And this is your first festival, then, as a debut writer, presumably?
It is my first festival, yes.
And I hope you have a great one, and that you have a really enjoyable time.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeannie. Moving on now, I'm talking to Julie Archer, who's from Dartmouth, so another one of our wonderful Devon writers. And Julie, you've published 2 books now.
I have, yes. The first one is Cocktails, Rocktails and Betrayals. That came out last September. That was my first self-published novel, and it was a big achievement and a lot of years in the making. And then this week, on Monday, One Last Shot, which is kind of a sequel but can be read on its own as well, has come out as well. So my books so far are about about romance, contemporary romance, with a rock star kind of music slant. So if you're into that sort of thing, then definitely pick them up. One of my reviewers also compared me to Jackie Collins and Jilly Cooper. So as a romance author, I don't think I can get much better praise than that.
Well, if you like Jackie Collins and Jilly Cooper, that's for sure. Yeah. And so, how did writing come about for you?
So I've always written ever since I was young. I used to kind of read books and then rewrite them in my own style, and then just sort of develop from there. But when I really started to take it seriously, I started doing something called the 6-month novel programme, which is run by the Writers' Playground and a couple of very lovely ladies who give you 6 months in which to plan, write and edit the first draft of your novel. And it's allowed to be gloriously craptastic, which means there's no pressure on you, but just to get the words out. So you get targets, you get cheerleading, you get all sorts of really great support. And that's really where Cocktails actually became a fully formed manuscript for me to work on and edit. And then I was at Tiverton Literary Festival last year, 2016, and got some great advice from some other self-published writers, and took the plunge and kind of haven't looked back since.
So one festival to act as inspiration, another to come back a year later and celebrate what you've done and meet the public and meet other writers as a published author then now?
Absolutely, yes. It's been fantastic.
How does that feel then, coming now as an accomplished writer?
It's great. I was also inspired by a World Book Night event that I helped to organise over at Stoke Lodge Hotel in Stoke Fleming, and that also really inspired me to make sure that I got the book out there and really did something with it, rather than just being one of those people who said, oh yeah, I'm sure I can write a book and get it out there somewhere, but hey, I've actually done it, and I've done it twice now, and that's a great feeling.
It's fabulous. And is there a third one on the way?
There is a third one on the way, yes. There's also a second Writers' Playground anthology coming out soon. The first one, Off Track, all about trains and journeys and things like that. That's also out now. And then there's a couple of secret projects coming up, which I can't say too much about yet, but follow me on Facebook and you can find out more about it.
Wonderful. Well, that all sounds very exciting. Congratulations on the new book and the first one, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, well, this is a great morning. Lots and lots of writers here at the Tiverton Literary Festival. And moving on now to talk to PJ Reid. PJ, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And you've published a lot of poetry, but also write novels. So can you tell a little bit about both genres that you write in?
Well, I'm a very eclectic poet and writer. So I brought my haiku and senryu poetry here. Now, that is a specialised 3-line form of Japanese poetry. The first line is 5 syllables, second 7 syllables, third 5 syllables, and it's about creating a picture of something you see or emotion and just writing it down simply like that. And some people actually, South Devon have Art Society have actually used my haiku to create pictures from, so I think that's really funny. I see pictures, I write about them, and they get my haiku and draw pictures from it.
And is each of the haiku books that you publish, they've got a theme?
Yeah, I've got Frozen Haiku is winter in Devon. Then you've got Haiku Nation, and that's all year round in Devon. And then Haiku Yellow is Devon in springtime. And my latest book is Flicker, and that is not the countryside of Devon, it's actually the people in Devon. So it's what I've overheard in cafes and things like that, and just writing about the characters, because Devon has some really interesting people.
Yeah, well, that's fabulous. And it's interesting to hear about how you take the stimulation from so many different aspects, natural life and the people of the county as well.
Oh yeah, it's lovely, because I mean the people of Devon make Devon, and they make Devon really special. So I was in Crediton the other day, and I actually found the time travel of Crediton, and not many towns have that. And he comes in and he gives you brochures from sort of months in the future, things like that. And you thought, these people have to be written about.
Well, that's fascinating, and that kind of leads me into, because some of your other writing, your novels, are more fantasy based.
That's right. I've got my first high fantasy novel, The Choiceing Chronicles. That's coming out in the autumn. That's from an American publisher called We Do Publishing, and that's about this 2 magical realms. One accepts magic and the other one hates magic. They put magic down, and obviously the magical realm that exploits magic It's trying to steal all the magic onto crystals from the non-magical world, and it's about a massive war and how these 5 very sad characters who've been on fringes of society because they are magically based in Chaucer, they come together to save their whole country, and it's brilliant.
It sounds like a lot of fun to write, and I'm sure people are going to enjoy reading it, so congratulations on that. And that's due out in the autumn, you say?
That's right, in the autumn. And then next year I've got my first horror novel coming out to be completely different.
Well, you certainly have got a mix of writing. You say eclectic, that's absolutely right. Well, it all sounds fabulous. Thank you very much for talking to us, and I hope you enjoy the festival.
Thank you.
Julie Archer just handing out sweets to authors. Just goes to show what a community of authors there is here at Tiverton this morning. So moving on to Jenny Kane. Jenny, very well known to lots of Tiverton people, of course.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You work here in the Costa Cafe quite a lot, don't you?
I do. I have my own corner in the local cafe, and I'm becoming a bit of a familiar face.
I hardly know where to start in asking you about the books you've written, because there's so many of them, and you've been writing for quite a long time now, haven't you?
Yeah, 12 years now, the 13th of September. I'm just working on my 202nd publication at the moment.
Wow, that's not 202 novels though, is it?
No. That involves 19 novels, more short story anthologies than I can recall, children's books, novellas, poetry, everything.
Wow, well, that's a very big range, isn't it? So tell us a little bit about where you started from and the journey that you've gone on as a writer.
Well, I started the very first day that my youngest child started school. And I was sat in a cafe in Scotland where I lived at the time, and an idea for a story came into my head, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And I found myself writing it on a napkin in the cafe where I was sat, and somebody said, "Oh, you should try that. Submit it somewhere." And I thought, ridiculous, so I didn't. And then I thought, well, maybe I should, and I did. And to my surprise, it got taken, and I haven't stopped.
And you began writing in a very different genre to where you are now, I think.
Yeah, I started with the pen name KJB, which is erotic literature, which I did for a long time. And then in 2013, I decided that I'd have a go at contemporary fiction for a wider audience. So I invented Jenny Kane, who became my women's contemporary fiction voice. Partly it was because the market had changed so much after 50 Shades of Grey came out and changed the rules, and partly because it was nice to be able to shut the bedroom door for a while. It's a very, very different style of writing, and it was much easier to write non-erotica than erotica.
I can imagine that. And I also understand Men in Tights are interesting for you as well.
I do like the Robin Hood. Yeah, I do like that. I've recently started writing medieval murder mysteries because many years ago I used to teach medieval history and criminology at Leicester University. And so I thought it might be quite nice to combine my love of the Robin Hood stories with my knowledge of medieval crime. And so under another name, Jennifer Ash, I've started writing medieval murder mysteries. The first one, The Outlaw's Ransom, came out last November, and the next one, The Winter Outlaw, comes out this coming November.
That's fantastic. It sounds really good. And of course, apart from all the writing, and we're here in Tiverton at the festival this morning, I mean, you spearheaded the festival a couple of years ago, didn't you?
Yes, I started it with a lovely lady called Kirsten Muggeridge and Susie Griggs, who is still involved in the running of the thing, 2 years ago. It was a lot of fun, and it's so lovely to see it growing and more and more people interested all the time. We were worried when Kirsten and I couldn't do it this year that it would stop, but luckily Rachel and Caro came to the fore and done a really good job.
Well, they certainly have. It looks like a wonderful start to the festival, and you must feel really proud that Tiverton loves books so much.
I am, actually. I thought I would be so relaxed because I haven't had to do the hard work, and it is really hard work, and it takes a long time to organise. But in fact, I still feel it like it's my baby, and although I'm not involved, I want to see it growing up nicely. And so, yeah, I really want it to work, and it makes me very happy that it is.
Well, congratulations on the range of books and the work that you've done, and on the festival, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to TCR Radio.